I reserve the right to refuse to talk about Blood Meridian until I'm ready to do a full-on Cormac McCarthy video, which, full disclosure, might be a couple months or years down the line. That turned out to be a lie. You know, when Cormac McCarthy got busted for going to Epstein's metaphorical island, I was sad as hell. I can't even lie about it. I mean, this guy has written some of the most stunning books that I've ever read, and then, after he dies, this news breaks about him taking a teenager to Mexico for nefarious reasons. If you didn't know, I'm sorry for telling you. If you did and you don't care, I'm sorry I can't make you human again. For me, it was kind of a how could I not have known kind of deal, especially given how often this type of age gap relationship shows up in McCarthy novels, at least 10 according to this article. And I remember a couple off the top of my head, but I haven't read everything he's written. It's like he wasn't even trying to hide it. That's what gets me. You know, I think this makes that complete moral failure sting that much worse. And I know, never meet your heroes, blah, 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 blah. It sucked to find out an author that I liked went to the metaphorical island, okay? Anyways, the main thing is that learning this news kind of put me off reading Cormac McCarthy, and if I'm being honest, with that being on my mind, Cities of the Plain should not have been my return to this guy, given how the plot centers around an adult man bringing let me check my notes here, underage Mexican prostitute across the border to the US to marry her, so at least you changed the details around a little, I guess. Cities of the Plain, from what I can tell, is not McCarthy's most widely read work. I don't know how many copies it sold, but it's been shelved on Goodreads a good deal less than his most famous works. This probably has something to do with it being the last in a trilogy that's not as widely read as McCarthy's most famous works. I mean, hell, I'd had it on my shelf for around 6 years before I finally got around to reading it. And read it I did, and thoughts I did have. When I sat down to write this video, I had two things that I wanted to talk about. The first is funny, the second serious. The one thing in this video's title refers to the second thing, but I'll mention the first as well because fuck you, my video, my rules, and the funny thing also isn't enough to really base a full video on. The funny thing, when we talk about authors like Cormac McCarthy, we talk about how they get to the bottom of what's real, life and death. Does God exist? Why have we done this to ourselves? Why do we keep doing this to ourselves over and over and over again? Questions like these are important questions, and if authors didn't tackle them, I don't know who would. Hollywood certainly won't, not in any way that really matters, and I don't think pornography would either, so with the last two pillars of American popular culture crossed off the list, we unfortunately have to go back to literature. There, we find Cormac McCarthy. McCarthy is often a serious author, deadly serious, in fact, and he often discusses or talks about horrific, violent shit. It's what he built his career writing about. I mean, the opening of Blood Meridian is infamous for how depraved it is, as is the basement sequence in The Road. Keeping that in mind, McCarthy can also be pretty damn funny. The opening to Cities on the Plain is hilarious. It's one cowboy warning another off of his preferred type of horror, and let's just say he is based and thick-pilled. You got one of them little darlings picked out? The boy shook his head. Which one you like, Troy? I'm like you. I come down here for a fat woman, and that's what I'm having. I'm going to tell you right now, cousin. When the mood comes on you for a fat woman, they just won't nothing else satisfy. I legitimately could not believe that he started the book this way. It really caught me off guard, but I guess I should have expected it, One mark of a good author or a good artist is balance and how well they strike it. The light with the dark, the day with the night, the broke 40-year-old author and the teenager. Bad people can be funny. Bad people can make great art. McCarthy can be funny. In fact, he can be very funny. But the one thing that I'd like to talk about today isn't. It comes near the end of the book. In the epilogue, in fact, after tragedy and knife fights in the rain, and, as always, death. We find Billy, the protagonist of The Crossing, another one of the books in the Border trilogy, as a homeless drifter near the end of his life. He is having a conversation with another drifter, one whom Billy suspects might be death incarnate. The drifter is telling Billy a story about a dream he had once, a dream within a dream about a traveler who meets a surreal death. Now, the drifter says of this dream, this story, like all stories, has its beginnings in a question. Here, Billy interjects. Every story is not about some question. The drifter responds, yes, where all is known, no narrative is possible. It is striking to me that McCarthy would choose to place this sentence towards the end of the last true Western that he wrote. No, No Country for Old Men does not count. That is a crime novel with Western trappings. This sentence, the one the drifter says to Billy, it strikes me as the closest McCarthy ever gets to putting a mission statement in one of his books. Great novels are, after all, deeply involved with questions. Now, what this question is can vary widely, the who, what, where, when, why, how. But if you're not writing to ask or to answer something, if you're writing something to show off your world building or writing something to give yourself an escape from the hellhole we live in, you are not writing fiction that is concerned with being great. There's nothing wrong with that, not inherently, but I think it is important to make that distinction and to be honest about what we choose to read or watch or otherwise consume. Christ alive. I don't know, guys. I don't know. This sentence really stuck with me. Where all is known, no narrative is possible. With it come questions I frankly don't have the capacity or education to answer to my liking. Why did McCarthy do what he did? Why did he write about it for the rest of his life? Why did he write Blood Meridian? What question was he hoping to answer with that endless violence? Why did he write Cities of the Plain? I don't know. I'll never know. All I can think about is this sentence. And in thinking about this one sentence and Cormac McCarthy, there is a question which comes to my mind. Now, if you were to try to oversimplify the question behind Cities of the Plain, the question which makes McCarthy's narratives possible, the most basic query that comes to mind is this. Why do we do this to each other? It's a worthwhile query for McCarthy, sure, and it's resulted in some great books, but this question to me also feels incomplete. It begs another question. Now, I want that question, the follow-up, to be, how do we stop doing this to each other? It's a nice question. It's a question that has some hope, but considering who McCarthy was as a person and the types of books that he wrote, I feel that his question, perhaps the ultimate question of his work, might be much harsher. It might also perhaps be the only question that's really worth asking. That question is, can we stop doing this to each other? This has been One Thing About Cities of the Plain. I hope to see you soon, and thank you for your time.